why we do farm them. Could it be to sustain the 4.3 million human beings who call Aotearoa home? Here's a scary statistic. 12,000 dairy farms account for 25% of everything New Zealand exports. Now that gives me a chance to touch on the proposed National Animal Identification and Tracing Scheme. We have been wrongly cast in civility, but let us not kid ourselves that this is a biosecurity response. Not with some remnants in and others supposedly out. Remember, Meatball New Zealand has pledged to its sheep farmers that sheep are out of NAIT. The chair of NAIT takes a contrarian view. There has been a lack of honesty and a whole lot of spin in the NAIT concept. Only your federation has asked the right questions as we try to prevent farmers going into the NAIT concept eyes wide shut. What part of $250 million error don't we understand? Let's not kid ourselves that this is about a consumer expectation either. It's more about supply chain assurance for food manufacturers. Hand on heart, this is an international movement, and governments of either hue seem to listen to it. Very well then, that makes it fundamentally a political decision. If NAIT cannot be about biosecurity without sheep, according to Meatball, do we need NAIT right now? Do we need NAIT when farmers are living on overdraft to pay the wages, the rates, and a host of other compliance costs? Can we please take a leaf from Australia's response to the global climate crisis and put this off until we really, really need it? In this, we look to the Minister to be mindful that timing is in his gift. This is the cost some say New Zealand cannot afford to make. It's a cost some farmers simply cannot afford right now. In other words, yes, plan and prepare for a scheme, but hold its implementation until markets require it of us. According to my work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, that day is yet to come. Can we also suggest to the Minister that if we are to make the jump, then ultra-high frequency opens up many more opportunities for farmers. NAIT seems to have arrived at the low-frequency solution before properly defining the actual problem. The way NAIT has approached RFID is an echo of the way local government operates today. Decide on a solution, work out the problem later. Think about that. Federated Farmers contends the feudal way local government is funded is now untenable. We're encouraged to have a minister who is as stunned as we are about the way the tentacles of local government have spread into areas it ought not to be in. Now is time for rational debate on its long-term funding, in which all wage earning citizens contribute to the services they consume. Federated Farmers is prepared to lead that debate. Leadership also means we are working on pandemic planning for our industries. Why wouldn't we be? If H1N1 mutates into a lethal strain, as happened in the 1919 pandemic, our industry will need thousands of people ready and able to support farmers. Federated Farmers now has the means in our ruralJobs.co.nz website. We live in an age where the climate of fear is rife. Federated Farmers is determined not to add to that fear. Yet by being prepared, like good Boy Scouts, there's no reason to fear the future. A few days ago, the first Tamiflu-resistant strain of H1N1 was detected. An unsolicited paper is underway that will go to MAF and the Minister shortly. New Zealand's most important industry and food supply chain needs to continue to function in the event of any crisis. History also shows us that when food production collapses, so does civilization itself. I don't wish to overemphasise that point, but it is important that every other sector seems to have a plan, but the really basis of all the trade for New Zealand and our security relies on food. So we should be at the basis of, or probably the pinnacle of all planning. I do wish to end by touching on what we see as a fault in the national psyche. Our progression of New Zealand is driven by less self-belief and more by what those overseas think of us. Or rather, what we think they think of us. This was reinforced by an education system that has pupils knowing a lot about New Zealand, but increasingly less about the world we sell to. We are increasingly ignorant of our future and the skills needed to meet that future. Look at the uptake of Asian languages in schools. Look at the enrolment in sciences and agricultural sciences. Look at tabloid television, which tells us everything we didn't wish to know about our society. Ignorance of the world is something we as a nation cannot afford. It amplifies the negative effects we supposedly have and diminishes the positive role we play in the world. Farmers have a strong sense of place and lead the world in trade and many of the commodities we produce. That is why we need to be much more positive, upbeat and constructive as an organisation and as farmers. It also means we will speak out, as we did in the Citizens Initiated Referendum Act, about the wastage of public money. Irrespective of where you stand on the issue, this Act in 16 years has not shifted public policy 1 millimetre. Signs are this latest one will be as effective as the previous 3. And if that's the case, we'll ask for the Act to be either amended or abolished. We have a general election. That's democracy. The current Act is sham democracy. It's an $8.9 million exercise in Clayton's democracy. Look at what $8.9 million would generate for New Zealand. And I know I'm picking on one thing. There is many, many examples of wastage at central government and local government level. But here's $8.9 million. What it might buy? If put into water storage, it would increase by 150% the sum currently being spent in that area, which is so critical to the future of our industry and the economic well-being of all New Zealanders. There is another much bigger issue that the Referendum Act throws up, that being the overall way our public law is formed and ultimately drafted. Even Sir Geoffrey Palmer, a noted jurist in his own right and a former Prime Minister, has expressed his concern at the proliferation of poorly drafted acts. Parliament should be known more for the legislation it doesn't pass than the cavalcade that takes the eye of Parliament off setting a positive direction for this country. Simply put, members of Parliament cannot see the audit paper for answer. That's why farmers are increasingly becoming publicly controlled utilities. It's easy to pay lip service to the word freedom, but that vital word is being eroded by an even bigger government at all levels of our lives. I firmly believe this will be a core role for your federation. In other words, I'm tired of your federation being known more for what we're opposed rather than what we stand for. We will lead on the policies that will enable you, our members, to be more productive and effective while retaining much more of your hard-earned income. Colleagues, your federation is rebuilding for a much brighter future, where we're at the epicentre, as our beekeepers would say, of New Zealand agriculture and agribusiness environment. Thank you.